Hey there folks, it's Blue here at Blue Bears Games, and today's video will be the upgrade guide for the Enduring Enchantments Commander Precon from the Commander Master set that was released in August of 2023. Before I get to today's video, I want to first take a moment to let you know that if you'd like to help support my channel, you can do so in quite a few ways. The easiest ways are by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, sharing any of my content out on your social medias, and or by watching some of my many other videos. If you're interested in other ways that you can help support my channel monetarily, please read the description of this video, and there you will find a myriad of options for what you can do to help keep this channel going. Anything that you can do to help support my small channel is greatly appreciated, and I thank you for it. Now with all of that out of the way, let's begin. For this guide, I will once again give some suggestions on not only what I would add to make this deck play a little better, but also on what I would take out as well. First off, I would not change the commander. Onyxia, while not my first choice to helm an enchantment-themed commander deck, is good enough for this deck to run smoothly. While my preferred colors for this theme are green and white, the addition of black adds a little depth and can give you more options for crazy shenanigans to ensue. Now, let's take a look at what I'd remove. This precon didn't have as many lands in it as the last few that I unboxed, but it still had more than I feel necessary, so I'd remove one forest, one swamp, one plains, and exotic orchard. This will bring the total amount of lands down to 33, but don't worry, I'll be adding a couple of utility lands back in shortly. Then I'd remove Spirited Companion, Nyxweaver, Path to Exile, Dreadhorde Invasion, Omen of the Sun, and Cast Out because their replacements will be much better for this deck. Finally, the last cards I'd remove are all of the sagas. I just don't feel that most of the sagas are worth it for what they cost, so that means removing the Eldest Reborn, the Binding of the Titans, the Mending of Dominaria, Love Song of Night and Day, Battle at the Hell Vault, Battle for Bredegard, and Binding the Old Gods. That also means that I would remove Narcy Fablesinger, because if we're removing the sagas, Narcy's ability won't really be relevant anymore. When I show you what I have in store to replace them, trust me, you won't even miss them. That's 18 cards in total that I'd remove, so now we have to replace them, right? Let me show you what I believe would be much better options to take this deck to the next level. Before I show you the cards that I would swap in, I want to remind you that if you want to see my Mana Fixing Land Upgrade Suggestions Guide, check out the upgrade guide video that I did for the Forces of the Imperium Warhammer 40k Precon. At the top of your screen is a link that you can use to go directly to the video, and I have time-stamped the guide in the description of that video so you can easily find it after you're done watching this one. Now, here are the cards that I would add, starting with a couple of lands. The first land that I would add is Reliquary Tower. The amount of card draw in this deck is actually quite insane for not having blue in the deck, so this card is key in helping you keep all those cards in your hand. I mean, you put all this work into refueling your hand, why waste it, right? The other utility land that I'd add is called Hall of Heliod's Generosity. It should be pretty obvious as to why when you read what it does. Being able to get back most of your deck if it gets destroyed is just really good in a format where most of the time you're lucky if you get at least one use out of it. Truth be told, I think it's honestly a shame that we haven't gotten enchantment lands that are legal to play yet, because this deck would love to have them. The mystery booster test cards tease them, and I'm sad that they still haven't chosen to follow through with that mechanic. Now I want to show you 8 creatures that I would swap in. The first is a card called Weaver of Harmony. Do you see why I was reluctant to say creature just now? Yes, it's a creature, but it's also an enchantment with all of the benefits and downsides of both card types. The Weaver is what we call a Lord, but instead of for a specific creature type, instead it's a Lord for all enchantment creatures. It also has this nice ability to copy activated or triggered abilities of enchantments that you control, which is a very nice little bonus. The second creature that I'd add is called Grim Guardian. The reason that I'd add this is because of something that I've stated many times before. If the board is clogged and you can't win through combat damage, this will help provide an alternative way of winning. About 98% of the non-land cards in this deck will have the enchantment type, so with Grim Guardian out, you should have more than enough opportunities to whittle your opponent's health down and win. To help aid this tactic along, the third creature that I'll suggest adding is called Calyx, Guided by Fate. Never mind the fact that this is one of my favorite cards to be printed recently, and I'm actively seeking a copy of one to make a deck centered around it myself, but it also helps aid in the small theme of granting you access to multiple copies of cards as well. Imagine for a moment, if you will, having multiple copies of the Grim Guardian out because of Calyx's token-making ability, and then having a bunch of other enchantments enter play over the course of the rest of the game. That life loss could add up very quickly, and there's not much that your opponents can do to prevent the loss. Sounds like a pretty good strategy to me. The next 5 cards I'm about to show you are what I would replace the sagas with. They are all enchantment creature gods that have some weird rules that may need to be explained further, but hopefully you understand how devotion works. If not, ask in the comments and I'll explain further. The 5 cards are Nylea Keen-Eyed, Erebos, God of the Dead, Athreos, God of Passage, Athreos, Shroud Veiled, and Karamitra, God of Harvests. As you can see, all 5 of these have indestructible, which is very helpful, and the mana cost to abilities and power toughness ratio is through the roof. All of them also have relevant passive abilities, while the first 2 have good activated abilities that help put cards in your hand. If your devotion is high enough to make them creatures, you get some really big beatsticks to help aid you in your quest to victory that are hard to get rid of. So as replacements for the sagas, I believe these will do just fine. Don't you think? The next card I want to talk about is the only non-enchantment card that I will be suggesting for this guide. One weakness that I see for this deck is its lack of mass removal, so I will suggest adding Wrath of God or some type of board wipe that may possibly be more in your favor. Since the only 2 cards in the game currently that destroy all non-enchantment creatures were already in the box, I believe that this spot can be any board wipe that these 3 colors have that you like, but Wrath of God is the most iconic of the bunch, so that's why I used it for a suggestion. The last group of cards that I'll go over before I show you a combo that I like for this deck are the actual enchantments. The hard part about this section is that there are so many that could be helpful, but here are 5 that I would suggest using. Number 1 is Sylvan Library. I mentioned in passing when unboxing this deck that Abundance pairs well with another card, and this is that card. When combined, the 2 cards essentially allow you to draw 3 cards per turn, with the bonus of you choosing between land or non-land for the draw. It's a very old combination, but it's a very effective way for green to draw cards. Number 2 is a card called Sphere of Safety. The sphere should help deter folks from attacking you, essentially making this a partial pillow fort style of deck. Since the ability relies on you having enchantments out to work effectively, this is probably one of the better decks to use the sphere in. Number 3 is an enchantment called Sterling Grove. This card will help keep most of your enchantments safe from spot removal, but it also stops you from being able to target them as well. It's a give and take, but you can control the downside by simply sacrificing it for its tutor effect. Number 4 is an enchantment similar to Sterling Grove, but with a much friendlier upside. It's called Privileged Position, and gives all of your permanents, not just your enchantments, hexproof. While I did not suggest any creatures with the Bestow or Mutate abilities, Privileged Position gives you that hexproof auras kind of feel, so if you wanted to explore those options, you can easily replace the gods with those types of cards and give that a shot as well. The 5th and final enchantment card that I'll suggest is called Aura Shards. I cannot stress enough how important removal is in a game of Magic, and when it can be done repeatedly, that's even better. Finally, we come to the combo part of this guide. Usually, this is where I show you a way to win with some sort of infinite combo that usually deals damage, but I've decided to go in a more defensive direction for this deck because it feels more natural. The combo is Delaying Shield paired with Solemnity. How this works is that Delaying Shield says that if damage would be dealt to you, instead prevent that damage and put a counter on it for each damage prevented. The second part of Delaying Shield, where it says you must pay mana for each counter on it, doesn't matter if you have Solemnity out, because it says that counters cannot be placed on different permanents, one of which is Enchantments. What that means is that you can no longer be dealt damage with both of these in play. The only caveat to this combo, though, is it only prevents damage and not loss of life, so keep that in mind. Always remember that while damage causes loss of life in terms of magic is not damage. Together, these two make a good pairing, but they are also good on their own. Especially Solemnity, because it is one of the few ways to nullify poison counter strategies. And that, my fellow Spellslingers, was my upgrade guide for the Commander Masters Enduring Enchantments Commander Precon. While everything that I just suggested may not make this precon a top-tier competitive EDH deck, it will make it better overall and a hell of a lot more fun to pilot. As I had stated multiple times throughout this week's videos, I'm an extremely huge fan of this theme, and I can't wait until I get my hands on a copy of Calyx to start making my own version very soon. Well, folks, that's it for this upgrade guide. Let me know what you think about the changes that I've suggested in the comments section. As always, thanks for watching, and if you could, please do me the favor of giving the video a like, subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so yet, sharing this out to anyone you think would enjoy it, and visiting our sponsor at arcane-fortress.com and using discount code BLUEBEAR for an additional 5% off of your order if you decide to purchase anything from them. Now go and watch some of my many other videos to tide you over until next week's video drops.